Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Time for Truth. My name's Christina, and today I'm going to be talking about Arizona, this mug, my mom, our visits through Arizona and the time that she spent there, and what's happening with the current situation with Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy. So it's very disturbing to me based upon some things that went on with my mom, not when she was living in Tucson, but more recently as like 2019. So I'm gonna pour a little drink here. Then I have a Fresco with a little grenadine shot. I hope everybody's doing well today. You know, it's a lot to listen to the news and, you know, still try to focus on, you know, the things that we all need to do on a day-to-day basis. Some things can be distressing more so for some than for others, particularly whatever has happened for us, you know, in our own life. So in my life, as it relates to my mom, this situation has brought up a lot because it's still fairly recent. You know, what happened to my mom happened in 2018 and she passed away in 2019. But her illness, you know, unlike Nancy, my mom lost her cognitive capacity. So she was no longer able to make decisions on her own behalf. And it was very sad. And, you know, I was the one who had to guide her through that process. So starting the episode off with as much positivity as we can, given the current situation, I did look in my library because one of the books that I really enjoyed reading, and my mom and I talked about this book because it was, you know, just kind of based on things. And that book is When I Am an Old Woman, I Shall Wear Purple. And it's short stories by women based upon their experiences in their own lives. It has one story in there, essay, that is on page 177. And I actually looked up the author of this passage. Her name is Shirley Vogler Meister, and she passed away on January 28th, 2020. She was around the same age as my mom, and so she also had Alzheimer's, and that was what my mom had. So I'm going to show you this passage, and then I will read it. Let's see if I can get this figured out. There we go. And then you can pause the screen if you want to read it or contemplate on it. Come back for it. It's called The Coming of Winter. And I had to look up two of the words to know how to pronounce them, so wish me luck on that. The winter winds have chilled the warmth we knew and whirl our unmet dreams like crumbling leaves around the barren trees, a rendezvous of weathered bones and somber dance, which weaves despair with sparks of hope that summon spring. Beyond the wailing wind is sanguine sound, the vigor voice that wakes all slumbering, the reassuring call of power more profound. We acquiesce to freezing winds and test our mettle against the spectral storms ahead, for there are forces that we can't arrest and states of nature that we need not dread. Beyond the winds lie gentler joys and peace that sanctify our fate and death's caprice. Caprique. That's how that's pronounced. So I thought that that was a very poignant essay in the midst of close to 200 pages of essays by women who talk about their life experiences and the things that they have endured, the places they've been, the lessons they've learned, the strengths that they've acquired over the way. And, you know, my mom was one of those ladies. She had gone places in her life. She had acquired things. She had had experiences, and she and I had forged a path of, you know, adult relationship, which is a wonderful thing, really a wonderful thing. And she had entrusted in me her care as she aged, and that was taken from me. So where I'm feeling distress is with the Guthrie family is knowing, the not knowing, knowing something's happened, but not knowing where your loved one is. And I even reached out to the chief of police in the town where my mom was in a secure mental health lockdown Alzheimer's unit. And he said to me, we really don't know where she is. They said that they were taking her on an extended vacation. This was after a local attorney had changed the power of attorney that my mom had put into place when she was of her own volition, when she was of sound body and mind. It was terrible. And the facility that I had placed her in, the administration that had met me and knew my mother's bit of story, disallowed the power of attorney that put my mom into that facility and let these strange people come in and change everything and take my mom ultimately 2,000 miles away, where my mom called me. I mean, I had no idea where she was. I had reached out to my cousin. She didn't know. I then got a phone call, and it was a phone number in Utah. And I answered it, and it was my mom sobbing and crying. I mean, where am I? Who are these people? Why am I here? It was horrible. Here's a picture of my mom and I in better days when she was doing, you know, pretty well. She was still living at her place on the main line in Philadelphia. She was still driving, getting, you know, where she needed to get, having autonomy. In fact, she even came to one of the family events, you know, where my daughter had been invited by my father, unbeknownst to me, and had a cousin not told me, I wouldn't have even known. So here we all were, you know. And when my father saw my mother walk into the room, like a pin could have dropped. I mean, I never saw somebody's eyes go so big. So, yeah, he doesn't run the show. And, you know, my mom, all she was trying to do was just live her life. But her kids had estranged her. They had sided with, you know, their father, which is entirely their right. But then that doesn't entitle you to swoop in and take over the legal standing of being a caregiver for somebody that you've had nothing to do with for 20 years, over 20 years. And in fact, my sibling, who ultimately took her to Utah and joint tenancyed my mother's bank account, had disinvited her own mother to her wedding. Told her, don't come to my wedding. If you do, you'll be escorted out by the police. This is the person who swooped into town and took my mother after my mother's power of attorney had been changed. Took my mom 2,000 miles away and got a new power of attorney naming her own self. How convenient is that? So my mom and I had been best friends for over 25 years since I left Iowa in the year of our Lord 2001. Well, it was around 9/11, right before 9/11 happened. So that added to the chaos. So at any rate, you know, this thing with Nancy Guthrie, for her to have been taken out of her own home. I know, coming to my mom's house, you know, after not knowing if she's okay, you know, knocking on the door, Mom, are you all right? Why aren't you answering your phone? And at this point, we weren't living together. I'd moved on once I got firm footing and was able to launch myself yet again into the, land of the adulthood. And, even including when I was working in Manhattan, must have been in 2007, 2006 maybe. My mom was living independently in this little twin that she had bought on the main line of Philadelphia, had great neighbors at that point. She was out shoveling snow because you have to clear your sidewalk. So the neighbors all got together, everybody helped each other. Well, my mom took a fall. So the neighbor called me. I'm on the train to Manhattan to my job. In fact, I might have already been at work. At any rate, I turned around and came back. My mom ended up in the hospital. I said, do you want me to reach out to your kids, your other children, and let them know what's happened? And of course, like any normal person would, of course they wanted those that they hope care about them, know that they're not okay, and not one of them responded. No flowers, no anything. No phone call to her once she got home, no nothing. So that was kind of like the beginning of my mom understanding that these people were aligned with their father, and the only reason why they were having any kind of contact with her was to convey, information to the person that they had aligned themselves with, my father. That's how that went. So, my mom and I were very tight. She traveled, I traveled, we traveled together. We spoke daily. I wasn't dependent on her financially in any way, shape, or form. She redid her home with the proceeds from 2 condos that she got in her divorce. And that was wonderful for her. Those condos were bad news as far as memories for both she and I, as far as that goes. So my father was working at the Pentagon at that point, and I was in my senior year of high school. We had just moved there. I knew nobody. My sister and I had been thrown together in this room, going to this brand new school where we knew nobody. My little brother was being bullied. Nobody was doing anything about that. At one point, because I'm kind of a rebel like that, I said, that's not okay. We went over and knocked on the door of the people and said, listen, it's not okay for this to be going on. And then they were all like, wah, 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 wah. But, they came over and knocked on the door. My parents were like, come off it. You guys got to stop bullying him just because he's the new kid. So there were a lot of instances like that growing up on military bases. This happened to be like in a normal condominium area. It was actually called Park Fairfax. I actually was a lifeguard at the community pool there after having been a lifeguard at Pocahontas State Park, where we moved from, which was Chesterfield County. So I went from very rural to all of a sudden thrown into this huge, just my senior year of high school. I knew nobody. So, my mom tried to fend for us, but, she was trying to fend for herself, quite frankly, at that point. And so my mom and I, after she got divorced, we forged a friendship that was adult to adult. And then she got sick, and she had put her legal papers into place. But before she got really sick, there were signs. And I knew that she was getting sick. I tried to help her in the medical community around here in Delaware. But by then she had moved from her townhouse twin in Philadelphia, down to the beach because some bad neighbors had moved in, damaged her car, which here I actually have a picture of her car. This was her little Honda. She loved her car so much. She had bought her car, paid cash for it at some point when she either retired from the IRS and got a chunk of change, something happened, and with her good fortune, she was able to pay it off. And the neighbor was like parallel parking, but using my mom's car as a bumper. So anyways, we installed cameras. That was a whole big, just nightmare. And at the end of the day, what happened to my mom's Honda Accord that she absolutely loved? Her estranged, disinherited son took it, apparently paid the estate $3,000 or whatever it was. I mean, I have the paperwork of what my mom paid for that. What, when I was, before the power of attorney was fraudulently taken from me while my mom was not competent in any way, shape, or form to execute a new power of attorney for anyone. Like, I just am still blown away by that whole scene. At any rate, she had paid that car off. And my brother ended up taking that car and paying the estate $3,000 for it. That's what I found out when the probate matter happened. Terrible stuff. Just like nonsense. But this is one of the last pictures that I have of my mom, like at our house in Delaware. And she loved taking a walk around, enjoying the forest. She was not well. She began wandering. When we lived in this home, she was wandering. When she was hospitalized the first time, we found notes saying, help, help, that she had put into the window. Like, this was somebody that we were like this, but all of a sudden things were missing. She accused me of stealing things. I tried to get her help in the medical community with, Alzheimer's, dementia. How do we diagnose this? How do I help my mom? And the help was not forthcoming. And so I'm very, very, very grateful to see the outpouring of support that Samantha Guthrie is receiving for her missing mother. My mom's situation was completely different, but I was still left for days not knowing where my mom was. And it is horrendous to not know where a loved one is. And it doesn't matter if they've been taken by family or by the unknown. Because at this point, all I knew is that my mom was taken from her care home by somebody who came to town, who then said that they were taking her on an extended vacation. That was the extent of the knowledge that I had. So my only assessment could be that it was my mom's estranged adult kids. So the attorney in Salisbury, Maryland, who allowed this to happen, who executed the power of attorney, that's fraudulent. That's insane. And my mom's estate attorney in Pennsylvania was of no help at all. Like, oh, well, that's Maryland and you have to find a lawyer in Maryland. And it's like, okay, well, then let me call lawyers in Maryland. Nobody's willing to help. Just insane. So I see that I'm on about 18 minutes on this. So I'm going to talk about this mug right here. This is a very cool mug that my mom and I were traveling one time, actually to my brother's wedding out in Northern California. I was newly sober. I had just been, I'd moved from Iowa where I'd left, a brand new house, 5 acres, middle of a cornfield where I got a DUI, left my, young child. I no longer had physical custody of my child, or at least at that point I knew that was what was going to be the case. I was dealing with a lot of legal issues. I was getting sober at that time, trying to clean up my act. My mom and I were, forging this new relationship of, being together. So we really came through, like both of us, the phoenix rising from the ashes of what had turned out to be, whether they're poor choices or good choices, they were choices that we made, at that time. And everybody's choices are half chance. So what I'm hoping is that Nancy is able, free will, to make her own choices, because to have that taken from us is the ultimate sacrifice, to all of a sudden be deemed incompetent or have our free will taken from us. So I don't say it lightly when I say that watching a loved one go missing, become ill, and watch them lose their cognitive function, and then watch others prey upon them, horrifying to watch, with very little recourse. that was also a very significant part of my mom's whole journey, even when she was injured. And, before I show this picture, this is what happened to my mom after I tried to help her. She'd been in one psychiatric hospital where they told me, she needs to go into assisted living. She needs to, because she's combative, we need to have her in an environment where she is under the care. And I believed them. I thought that's what she needs and that's what she wanted. So I thought, okay, she went willingly. We went and toured places. This was not some just snap of my mom's missing. No, what's happened for Savannah is a terrible thing because it's so sudden and so tragic. What's happened with my mom was a slow train wreck of watching these things go down and wondering what is happening and who can help me. And there was nobody, not the state, not the ombudsman, not the police, not the caregivers in the $4,000 a month care facilities where I'm going to show a picture where my mom got injured. This is what happened to her in the first care facility, Atria Salisbury, in Salisbury, Maryland. Atria. My mom willingly went there. I toured it. My husband and I, my mom, we all went. My mom was getting released from basically the psychiatric hospital because that's where they diagnose these kinds of things. And she was vulnerable. And I was doing my best to protect my mom. We had put up cameras at my mom's house. My mom had come to live with us for a period of time in between, finding her a different place to live when the neighbors weren't good. And then to have all of that just swept away from me, under the cover of darkness and lies. Horrifying. So anyways, Mom and I found mugs at the Phoenix airport when we were traveling for my brother's wedding, which was a beautiful wedding, by the way. And my brother's one of the ones that was involved in all of this. In fact, he accused me of things like they're all aligned with my father, who's still alive to this day. So if any of them are ever watching this, shame on you. Shame on you. Because if any thing comes to light with anybody actively being involved in what has happened with Savannah's mother, Nancy, shame on you for doing whatever you have done, because these are vulnerable women and they do not deserve to be preyed upon. This is another actual one of the last photos that I have of my mom. And then I'm gonna close this and do another video to carry this about what happened after this photo was taken. So it was around the time of my mom's birthday. So it had to have been by this time, May. And I had sent a birthday cake to my mom, and I'm gonna block out this person because she just happened to be a resident who was very excited to have some birthday cake. So I'd had this cake delivered to my mom. Look at her. She was so happy that day, and we talked that day too. It was one of the last times that I saw and spoke to my mom, and she wasn't well. She was not in her right mind, and it's very sad. So there are a lot of people that are involved who took action that they shouldn't have taken, who failed to take action when I reached out and asked for help, and nobody stepped up. And by then, my mom was 2,000 miles away, taken from Maryland to Utah. And that's how I found out where my mom was, from a phone call that had caller ID that said Utah. So I thank you for tuning in. I'm sending out my prayers for the well-being of Nancy Guthrie and to her children who are, left in this quandary of where is their mother. That is a horrible thing when people go missing. And some people are never found, and some people are found and they're alive and well. And that's what I'm hoping for Miss Nancy Guthrie. For my mom, she was found alive, but she was not well. And the new care home put her into we're going to put her into an alcove and keep an eye on her. And at this point, some things had gone on in the legal community over there in Utah that I didn't have a clue about. I was operating without the full picture, and there was nobody who was stepping up to help me. Not the police, not the legal system. So I have a lot to say about that. But on that note, I will say that when I am an old woman, I shall wear purple. And I just noticed that my blouse is purple. So there you have it. I've been through a lot, and I'm going to talk about these things because women are vulnerable. Elderly women are especially vulnerable. And if we cannot protect our own elder population, and I'm going to throw in there our veterans too, if we cannot care for those people who have, served us, and every mother has served us. Every mother has changed diapers, regardless of the outcome of the parent-child relationship. We either choose to forge a relationship on an adult-to-adult basis with our parents, or we choose not to. It's incumbent on each of us to make that decision. I chose to do that with both my parents. One was rejected me, my father, and the other, we built a beautiful relationship to the point where she trusted me with her legal documents, which were then invalidated, which caused her irreparable harm. So on that note, I'm going to make another video and I'll follow up to this one. So everybody have a great day. Take care of yourself and take care of your elders, regardless of, the relationship. Try and forge a new relationship, but check in on them because they're the only family that you have. That's it. There's nobody else that can step in and be a mother or be a father or be a grandparent. So for those that ostracize and shun, shame on you. I reject it fully. Yeah, okay then. Take care and catch you in the next video.